All right, this is our soft training softball, which we use for fascia release, as opposed to a lacrosse ball. Some like to use this as more of their prominent tool versus the lacrosse ball, and I'm one of them. I like this tool a little bit better, bigger surface area. So especially I'm going to go at this position here, just below the hip bone. I'm going to go after my rectus femoris right here, where common trigger point develops, and then I'm going to move over to my TFL, and then I'm going to move over to my lateral hip. So when I go here just below the hip bone a couple inches, I'm going to go on that rectus femoris, and I'm just going to have my toes point straight down. I go all the way down on my face, usually here, put my forehead on my hand, and just let that tissue melt. And again, this is why I'm especially tender, that I need to pull out this kind of tool. Normally, the foam roll is going to suffice, and you'll feel pretty good in your hips as you kind of march up and down. You don't feel much tenderness. But days you are tender in there in the crease, you need to go to these special tools to get, again, that tissue to release. So I'm going to hang out there for usually about 30 seconds. Then I can do a little rolling back and forth. Okay, with that, just getting a little bit of a longer leg. Okay, then I'm going to move over to the TFL. When I find that, most guys can tolerate this in the beginning on a forearm. All right, so they're a little supported. More pressure when I go all the way down to here. And again, just let it melt. All right, especially when I'm especially tender. All right, I want to just let that melt, and then I'll add a little bit of rolling here. Okay, so you can see it fits the contour of the hip a little bit better, right, than a foam roll, so it's a little bit more effective. Some people on the lacrosse ball feel it's a little too aggressive, so this is kind of a nice go-between. So now we're going to go to the lateral hip. And usually I start here in a full seated position, and I'll scan the whole glute area. So a lot of times the bottom of the glute, I get a little tender in there from decelerating forces when we hit and we throw. So I just kind of scan the bottom of that glute, and I may find a little ropey in there, and I'll just kind of hang out and just sit. All right, good 30 seconds to longer if I need, and it feels like it's melting a little bit, and then I can swish back and forth. I'm like, wow, that feels a lot better. All right, then I'm going to move towards the rim of the hip on my glutes. All right, so I'm going to get here. So you can see I got a left forearm down, ball's on my left hip, nice long left leg. Let that melt. Okay, so I search along that border, see if anything's tender. Again, I'll just articulate my body a little bit, turn a little bit more, right? Get in that spot. All right, so I'm searching for those tender spots. Okay, so that's a nice example of that. And again, be slow with that. Give it 30 seconds or longer to melt. And then I can go up and down. I can work that whole lateral glute area. I showed you some cool techniques before where we go all the way supine with the lapel. So we go here. And here we can add a little bit of windshield wiper or abduction, adduction on our tender spots, so we can sweep. Sweep, right? We can take it up a little bit and down, right? Great pattern to activate the iliacus. So I like this a lot. Keep your abs nice and stable. Power up, sweep it in, frog kicks, all of those, all right, on your tender spots. Then we're going to go to just a quick piriformis, where we're going to sit on that ball. We're going to do a little crossover, right? And then we're going to work up in that diagonal pattern, right? So that piriformis sits in here, right? Nice diagonal down. You'll find it because it's going to be tender. All right, swish back and forth. Really work on crossing back over midline, getting your knee to point up. Swish, okay? Nice hand support, right? Excellent. Forearms, real quick. So when I'm on the ground, pitchers especially, day after you throw, you just place that right on that lower forearm in here, right? We can just let it melt in here. We can go back and forth. We can do circles, right? Searching for that tender spot, manipulate the wrist a little bit, just get it sweeping through here, right? Search around for what's tender. If it's really tender, again, you can just melt that away for a little bit. Okay, hang out, and then go back to some dynamic rolling. You could do this standing against the wall as well. That works nicely. I particularly like this version. I feel like I get a little bit more force applied, and I control the ball a little better. It's not falling off the wall. All right, so speaking of the wall, we're going to get up on our feet, and we're going to go to a few key areas of the upper trap, okay, and the levator scapula. So upper trap, usually we develop trigger points somewhere in the middle here, again, especially pitchers. So this is a nice little technique that we place that ball right in that middle of the upper trap. We give it a little pinch on the sides. We go a little oblique to the wall, and we just allow that spot to melt. We find where it's tender. Again, it's going to be right in that area. And then I'm just going to hang out, stabilize the ball a little bit if I need to. Tip my head gently away from the ball to get the muscle to lengthen a little bit. And breathe. Anything that we do shouldn't take your breath away. You got to ease off. You got to find a way to ease off that, again, position with less gravity to make it feel that I can breathe naturally, again, as I release that tissue. Okay, so that's your upper trap release. And then the levator, there's a little bit more here, levator scap. So here's the top of your scapula, bone, right, top here. Then we're going to come over a couple inches towards midline. Ball is going to sit there. Okay, I don't need to go quite as oblique. I can almost be facing away from the wall, but I'm going to turn just a little bit here. I take my chin down towards the opposite shoulder and let myself melt where that tissue's, again, real taut. So pitchers especially, or position players that have done extensive amount of throwing, especially early in the season, these areas are going to develop a lot of stiffness, tightness, and you're going to be sore and tender, and it's going to give you shoulder discomfort along with that. All right, so this is how you start to release the stuff that's grabbing your shoulder and pulling it down and in, which it doesn't want to live there. All right, then I add a little bit of a pattern also where I'll just kind of raise the arm up, nice overhead raise, and down with that pressure. So again, you don't want to keep going with these patterns until it feels a little bit better. And you should have no discomfort, ideally, when you roll across these areas. All right, so now I go to some extra dynamic movement, back and forth. Excellent.